Greetings, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks even more for just registering and supporting our families across North Carolina by participating in Prevent Child Abuse virtual 5K, 5 factors 5K. I get this wrong every time because it's a great tongue twister, but it does help you to remember. Prevent Child Abuse NC's 5 factors virtual 5K. Okay. I made it. Thanks so much for joining and being a part of that. I'm Jess Averhart, CEO of Jess & Co. and immediate past chair of Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina. And so because of that, and because I'm a mom, I believe in this work a great deal and believe deeply in the investments that we make every day in our families and our kids. So thank you for supporting this virtual 5K and for tuning in and wanting to learn more about reinvention. That's my work. I'm passionate about the power of reinvention, that we spend, a limited amount of time on this planet. And so I really think we need to do it at our most optimal, highest and best use, which I think is for other people and to serve. But, that's how I view it, right? And so the idea is when we think about reinvention, how do we do this in a way that is purposeful, provides fulfillment for you, and drives purpose while we're here on the planet? So that's the work that I do. So in just a few minutes, we're going to jump into my 5 tips of reinvention, things that I've learned along the way. I've reinvented myself 1,000 times, it feels like, and you'll hear some of that. But I hope that will be helpful to you as well. Before we jump in, I'd encourage you to go to the website for Prevent Child Abuse so you can learn a little bit more about the work that they do every day. The website is preventchildabusenc.org, preventchildabusenc.org. So join us there, take a look, look around, see the work that's happening, and learn how you can continue to support this organization after this virtual race is over, right? Because after the race is over, the work continues. All right, team, I will see you over at the 5 tips of reinvention in just a second. Bye. All right, let's get into this. I'm really excited to be a part of this special week as we think about serving our families and our kids across North Carolina. And I hope that this next 30 minutes or so is inspiring to you and helps you think about ways in which you can improve your odds for reinvention. So let's dig in. All right. So first of all, let's just start with permission. A lot of us need to feel like this isn't a luxury and that it is simply something that we're always doing anyways. And so I just want to remind you that you are allowed to reinvent yourself. In fact, you're doing it all the time. The question I always ask is, if we're doing it anyways, who's in the driver's seat? Like, are you in the driver's seat and designing what that next phase of your life is going to look like? Or are you in the passenger seat and letting something or someone else do that for you? Hopefully the answer is you're in the driver's seat. But if you're not, the next couple of minutes will be helpful, I think, in having you reframe how you can get in control of your reinvention story. So who am I? I'm Jess Averhart. As I indicated at the beginning, right? I'm the CEO of Jess & Co. and have an interesting background. I used to work in the sports and entertainment industry, producing football and basketball games for the Bengals, the Browns, and the Cavs when I was in Ohio. Obviously, if you put all those 3 together, you know what state I was in. When I was in Ohio, I also at one point worked on an Amish farm over a summer. I've worked in a Fortune 5 company at General Electric as a financial analyst and worked at a broadcasting company, an early stage startup, tech hub. So I've sort of been in various industries, satisfying my curiosity along the way, right? I mean, these opportunities come and go. And I usually say yes to things that are different and new and that I'm just trying to push my limits a little bit. And it served me well because I have a broad sort of landscape of tools and toolbox that I can pull from over the last couple of decades. And so having a lot of fun with this, and at one point looked back and said, oh gosh, you've really been reinventing yourself along the way. And some of that is on purpose, some of it was accidental. But in the last couple of years, I've really been intentional about thinking about ways in which to design my life. And that's why I do this work today, mostly with women, but not exclusively, around thinking about how to design and be more thoughtful about how we spend our time on this planet. So reinvention is my jam. You'll see my son on the right-hand side. He's a teenager, graduated from high school, and is a college student. He's enrolled at Morehouse College. He took a gap year this year, but because of the pandemic. But he's a student athlete, football player, and will attend officially Morehouse next fall. And then you just see my family and friends there in the middle. And that's sort of like my why, right? I mean, we all need to understand what our picture would look like and why we get up in the morning and why we do the things we do. This is why. All right. So let's talk about this for a minute. Why are we even spending time on reinvention? Like, why can't all of you who are listening to this just do it? Well, the truth is that we get distracted, right? We prioritize things, people ahead of our own dreams and goals. And statistically, it says that 50% of women on the planet Earth have given up on their dreams. So that's like 1 out of every 2 women on Earth have given up on their dreams. The Asian countries are higher. Those percentages are higher. The percent in the U.S. is a little bit under 50. It's like 48%. Still, rounded up, it's 50%. 80% of Americans admit to being stuck in a routine. I think you could just think like, okay, am I in a routine? Likely you are. 80% of Americans, so that's like 8 out of 10 of us feel like we're just, in Groundhog Day every day. And then you can see that almost like a numbing medicine, right? We're all just sort of like getting into the self-help industry, reading books, listening to audiobooks, taking courses, getting coaching, because we're trying to be better, right? We're trying to be better. It's not okay. So just because we've given up on our dreams and that we feel stuck in our routine, we also know that that's not how we want to live. So there's a lot of money being poured into the self-help industry today. And what they say is, and this is what's going to dig us into our time together, is that people actually just don't know themselves very well. Adam Grant with The Atlantic, has quoted this, but then the back half of this piece, it said that your coworkers know you better than you know yourself. So they went on to expound that, and by saying that your coworkers could probably tell someone else your strengths and your weaknesses. They could even articulate your dreams better than you can, because they see you, they watch you, they know what really drives you, what you're passionate about, they know what you're not really into. And so they'd be able to articulate strengths, weaknesses, and goals and aspirations. And so that is a problem when other people can be more clear on who you are than even you are. And so we really need to start doing some work on ourselves, right? We've got to get serious about this and do some work on yourself. So before we move too far into my 5 keys to reinvention, I want to encourage you to either go online and do an online personality quiz or something like that if you want to do something quickly. Or I actually feel like taking the time, sitting at a table with a blank white sheet of paper and writing out your strengths, listing your weaknesses and your goals yourself is actually a better exercise, because it requires you to think and to be thoughtful. It requires you to be vulnerable. And so I like the idea of mind mapping. And so I always mind map my strengths, my weaknesses, and my aspirations. You can look that up online, or you can go to my website. I talk about it there too. But that is a great way to just get very honest about who you are and start to know yourself better. The other thing I like to encourage folks to do is to call 3 to 5 people and ask them the same question. so that I had to do this exercise, I think 2 years ago at an event. And I just thought it was so powerful to sort of expose myself in that way and ask other people to speak into who they see me as and see if it matched who I thought I was. So I'd encourage you to do that. All right, so once you get through all of that good stuff, you'll have a really good picture of your anchoring. Who are you? And then you can really start to think about, what it is you want to accomplish in the next 3, 6, 12 months, and what that reinvention story is going to look like. And so what I want to get into now are my 5 keys to reinvention, the pitfalls and the glory, right, of the process. So the first thing you want to do is set your mind free. And this seems a little like hokey maybe, but the truth is that a lot of us have a fixed mindset, right? We are locked into routine. We are locked into tradition. We are locked into our politics. We just are. And so the first thing you've got to do if you're actually serious about getting to the next better version of yourself is to drop the fixed mindset and to set your mind free, right? Have a growth mindset, right? Taking notes, if you're taking notes, write that. The only way to drive your dreams is with a growth mindset. All right, so that takes a little bit of work. It really will require you doing some inventory of what it is that your core values are, and what values have just simply been influenced by your surroundings, the news, your coworkers, your family and friends, and just maybe suspend those for, a little while, a couple of weeks or a month or so while you're going through this reinvention process and see what happens. The next thing is you've got to do your work. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I just basically said that before we got into this first one with the fixed mindset. You've got to do your work. You have to know who you are. So get in there, figure out your strengths, weaknesses, and aspirations. I'd also encourage you here to figure out if you suffer from imposter syndrome or if you've ever felt like you say that you're one thing, but really you don't feel like you're that person. You feel like a fraud, and you're worried that if people realize that you don't know all the things that they think you know, or that you would be found out. That's imposter syndrome. And so I would recommend that you figure out which type of imposter you are. There are 5 types of imposters. The best way to do that, because it's an actual, you have to think about it and hear the different types, would be, it sounds like I'm sending everybody to my website and stuff. But if you do go to my website, there's a tab on there that's under podcast, and I have a podcast on imposter syndrome, so it's free. Just go and listen to that, and I will unpack all of those different types of imposters. That way you can decide, okay, this one sounds like me, and then you'll be ready for it. If it pops up, you'll know how to handle it. I give you a couple of tips and tricks, but you got to do the work, right? Go on YouTube, learn about it, understand who you are, so that when you get into the reinvention process, you aren't faced with some surprises and things that will set you back. Okay, this is my favorite one, being uncommon. When you are in a reinvention stage of your life, the most important thing is getting comfortable with being uncommon, because the things that you'll start to do and the choices that you'll start to make will not mirror the people around you. And the people around you will really be confused or maybe offended, or, they may push back. They could be even negative. I think you'll really find out who your tribe is in this process, because you'll find out who is incredibly supportive and understanding, and you'll find out who just wants to kind of hold you back because it's more convenient for them if you are held back. And so this is a very important piece. And so I would recommend that you make a commitment to yourself to be uncommon and get comfortable being uncommon. Prepare your statements to your friends and family when they ask you to do drinks on the rooftop, or they say, hey, let's spend the weekend at IKEA roaming the aisles. If you can't do that, then don't do it. You know what I mean? If it's going to hold you back or set you back a couple of days from something you're trying to accomplish, don't do it. This is the time, this is your gift, and you need to honor this time for yourself. So this is my absolute favorite tip, because it is going to happen, and you need to be prepared. And you got to be like, oh yeah, Jess said this was going to happen, and you'd be like, I'm being uncommon today. Like I'm in pursuit of my dreams, which is awesome. All right, name your fears. Okay, so what is that about? I think immediately we think about, okay, I'm afraid to fail. Like I don't want to go down this reinvention journey and I spend all this time and maybe money and I'm going to fail. The opposite of that is I'm afraid to succeed. And I actually think more people are afraid to succeed than we give it credit. We all say we want to succeed. It seems silly to say we don't, right? So we all say we want to succeed, but once we get close, we're like, oh my gosh, what is that going to mean? And then what am I going to have to do next? And am I going to have to keep this up? And I'm going to have to live to this level and expectations of other people and all that kind of thing. So we've got to be honest that some of us are afraid to fail and some of us are afraid to win. So what I'd like you to do here is name that. Like close your eyes and think for a minute. What are you actually afraid of? What are you really afraid of? Right? And then I would write them down. Write those fears down. And then all you have to do is just list 3 actions that you would want to take to address them if for some reason they came true. Okay, so I want to start a new business. I'm afraid the business won't be successful. Okay, fine. So then write that down. So what's the action that you'll take? So if the business fails, then what happens? You look for a job, right? You don't become you're not out on the street necessarily. That's catastrophic. If the business doesn't succeed, maybe you call 5 close friends and say, hey, I need some help looking for some work, or, hey, I need some help. My business is on the brink of failure. Can you, refer me and share my business product or service with some of your folks, because I really want to give this a go. Or if it's just flat out failed, then you get a job, right? So then the fear doesn't become as toxic. It really becomes a toothless tiger, is kind of how I like to think about it, right? It's not that big of a deal. The world actually doesn't end. So when you list your fears and then you name the actions that you would take if it were to happen, then you're like, okay, I have a plan. Then you can get that off your plate and then keep pressing forward. All right. So that's tip number 4. And then last but not least is take the next right step. And this seems obvious. Oprah talks about it. It's also one of my favorite, I guess, recommendations, is that when I'm talking to people normally, and particularly when I'm coaching, like almost always when I'm coaching, the issue becomes people are overwhelmed. Usually you're in coaching because you are overwhelmed. And so when we're talking, it's like breaking it out into, okay, I understand where you want to be in the next year, but the next year isn't here yet. You have 12 months, right? You have 30 to 31 days or so in each of those months. So each of those days, right, have hours. So what's the next right step? What's the next step today that we're going to take to get you to the goal that you want to achieve in the next year? So the next right step is the only step that you need to think about in reinvention. And you have to take it. You have to actually do the action and do the next right step. I have a step today as I'm recording this that I have to do. And I have to do it today, because if I don't do it today, then the other things that follow, I can't do those other things. So I have to do this step today in order to accomplish my bigger goal, which is in 3 months. But I have to do this thing today in order to help it with funding and all these different things. And so all I'm worried about, I'm not thinking about January. I'm thinking about today in October, what step I need to take. And so So like take a deep breath, break it out into small pieces, create actions around it, and then take the next right step. All right, so that should help you on your reinvention journey. It should give you some comfort to know that these are fairly basic, but the fact that I am sharing them means that everybody needs reminded that it's okay, and the feeling of overwhelm is okay. The feeling of being a fraud is normal, right? All of this stuff is just life. We're humans and we experience these feelings and anxiety, but it doesn't have to stifle our dreams. It doesn't have to choke out what we're trying to accomplish. We just need to acknowledge it and face it head on and not bury our head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. So I want you to dig in today. Think about these 5 steps, right? And really sort of come to terms with where you are in your reinvention journey, and then write down that next right step. I hope you will take me up on my offer of going back and thinking about your strengths and weaknesses. I believe those are the anchors. If you don't know who you are, it's going to be really hard to evolve into that next better version of you. Those weaknesses are very important because that will help you think through, well, what do I need to do to be better? Am I always sharp with people? Do I bulldoze people over in conversations? Do I always think I'm right? Do I have an attitude of being, arrogant? I don't know, just coming up with things. Am I meek? Am I quiet? Do I have thoughts and don't share them? Like if those are your weaknesses, that's amazing because now you can plan to work on adjusting that, right? Putting real tools pulling out real tools in your toolbox and like working on them the very next day. You can say tomorrow when I'm in with my coworkers, I'm going to be slow to talk. Or tomorrow with my coworkers, I'm going to ask the second question. Whatever it is, but then get into the practice of it so that weakness turns into a strength. All right, folks, that's really all that I have for you today. I hope that this was helpful as we think about this work that's happening at PCA&C. I'm so grateful for them that they think about the whole person and gave me the opportunity to share my thoughts on reinvention. If you have questions, check out my podcast. It's Reinvention Road Trip. Reinvention Road Trip. It's on Apple, iTunes, and Google and Spotify. And you can get more tips and tricks on reinvention for free. You can go to my website, which is jusaverhart.com, and download the roadblocks to reinvention, sign up for our conference in January. Lots to do, and all free. So please help yourself, enjoy the process, have some fun, and we will see you on the other side when you are at the next better version of you. All right, friends, take care.